Welcome everyone to Autogefühl, your number one resource for in-depth car reviews and your number one community to discuss cars with Thomas. And today with another best of video, a comparison video, very exciting because it's about hot hatches. Really interesting subject here. We're here, by the way, with a Golf GTD, but that's not about it, but a similar version. Today we are comparing the Golf GTI, the Peugeot 308 GT, the Alfa Giulietta QV and the Seat Leon Cupra 280. A little bit different in the horsepower. If you want to directly compare the horsepower figures, it has a list in the video description where you can check them up actually. And well, we compare these cars here, which strengths they actually have, difference in exterior, also in the driving and in the engines. And at the end of the video, I want to hear your opinion about which one would you actually go for and why. And also, I'm stating the opinion which one of those four I would go for. So the typical GTI color is red for racing, and there we got the GTI logo in the front, and quite neat feature, we got this red stripe here, horizontal line, which is carried out through the headlights, and that's kind of a very nice feature. From serial production it comes with big xenon headlights, by the way. And then of course we got a little bit stronger here at the lower part. It's all black plastic, so it doesn't feel too good, but well, it looks a little bit more impressive than with the serial version. It has a tradition in the Golf GTI that the interior is also very special, and especially this red color here on the seats, and also, you know, just the whole optic with this checkered structure. This has also been always been the case in the GTI, and for example, also check out the review of the Volkswagen Golf GTI, the plug-in hybrid. There you've seen maybe that everything which is red here is covered in blue. You know, blue, this fancy environment color, everything is blue, clean and stuff and so. But here we got the red, and it's all about racing. And you know, my favorite stuff in car interiors are always contrast stitches, and you got them all over the seats. And they're actually, you know, they offer good side support. You see this one is here and covered in Alcantara, the sides. For my taste, the seating could be a little bit softer, because when you're going on, you know, longer trips or something like that, it can get a little bit stiff. But in general, this kind of design of seats and also the form is a very good example how you can create something very premium-like with seating without using leather at all. I think that's a very good feature. We also have a very stylish cockpit here. I really love the steering wheel, a flattened end, GTI logo, red contrast stitches on the inside, and it also offers very good handling. We also got a special GTI key with the logo here at the lower end. It's also very premium-like. And then we can turn on the instruments. The instrument also very clean. And what I must say, very good with Volkswagen is always the quality of the buttons. For example, if I just like change the volume, or for the automatic cruise control, or also here in the region of the GPS, where I just have the turning knobs or for the temperature here, this always feels high class. Even, you know, the small sounds that are created when you turn the buttons. So right now I got the seat in the front as I would be driving, and I'm almost 190. Of course, it's just a compact car. You can't expect too much space in the rear compartment, but you see, for an adult, my knees are perfectly fine. I can put my feet under the front seat. Then if I just put the headrest a little bit more upward, well, I could have a little bit more space, but maybe like the front driver could go one step further. Then the hatch space, still okay. So I got like this space above my head. So that's perfectly fine. You of course feel this kind of shoulder the car has a little bit, but in general it's really okay to drive with two adults here in the back as well. What is very nice, I can show that when I get out here again, then you can just, you are the camera now, so you can go in while I talk. When you just look at the seats here in the back, the whole design from the front seats is carried over to the back seat. So you also got the nice Alcantara here and the inside of the seats. So we have a visitor here now. It's not my dog, it's just a visiting dog, but I find it quite cute because he has the same color in the car actually. And as his tongue is red, you might also see the red color of the tongue. So I think if you are driving a GTI, you should probably also get a dog from the animal shelter. And yes, yeah, hey, hey. Sweet here. Driving inside a city, a lot of the sports cars tend to be a little bit rough, and that's rather uncomfortable because if you want an everyday sports car, you want that sporty feeling in the corners, but still want something you can drive every day without hurting your back. And actually this Golf GTI, you don't really feel that the car is 50 millimeters lower when driving in the city, so it doesn't get too uncomfortable. Also, we got the 20-inch alloys here on that car. That is not from serial production. You usually get the 17-inch alloys and then can upgrade it with additional costs. But you know, usually 20-inch alloys are quite uncomfortable. They always look great, of course, but you know, not too practical. But in this case, it really works, I think. It's not too uncomfortable, although we have this 20-inch alloy, so I'm quite optimistic about that. And so you can really say that you don't lose so much comfort in comparison to the normal Golf here in everyday driving, but still got, you know, this emotional appeal and the performance of the GTI. Talking about the design, in the front we got a bigger air intake here. It looks a bit cheap, I think, just this black plastic. And also this racing logo, I think, well, it's not that lovely in my opinion. But what is very lovely are the headlights. They look so dynamic and also distinguish this car against the Golf GTI, which is kind of the big competitor to this car, even if it's from the same corporation, kind of. As for the interior, you can expect what you can usually expect from a Seat Leon. Very good quality, very good craftsmanship everywhere. Well, it is a lot of black plastic still, but it's all very well processed at least. And so you don't have to get used to a completely other car, to maybe a new racing car. You got the standard setup here, but just with a very nice steering wheel. That is kind of a difference. We got better sound, I'll show you soon. This nice steering wheel here, it's got a flattened end and also the racing logo, and it's got a very nice grip. I love the steering wheel, and because this is kind of the interface from man to machine, this is very important, especially for such a car. Well, in which racing car you can sit in the back as well? Well, in this one, and I still got enough headroom, although I'm not that small. Well, the legroom could be a bit more, but it's still okay. This is a 5-door version here. You also got the SC, the 3-door version, but I would always recommend the 5-door version because it does not harm the design, and still you got more usability in everyday driving. You also got the B-color seats here in the back, which is very nicely done and adds some more to this special feeling, but still also the interior is more kind of the understatement and not to arouse so much attention. As for driving the Seat Leon Cupra 280, you just feel like in a normal Seat Leon, and when the road is very well built, you almost feel no difference, also suspension wise. It is a bit stiffer, yes, but you only realize this. We're coming here to quite a bumpy road now. And when you're then going around the corner and you got the bumps inside the corner, then it's a little bit more uncomfortable in comparison to the normal Seat Leon. But still, it's not that you would say it's so stiff that I can't really drive it on long road or something like that, on long trips. It is still comfortable enough to use this car in everyday life, and that's also what Seat has tried to do and also succeeded in doing it. However, by the very well done sporty steering wheel, you got a nice connection to the road, and it's a lot of fun to drive it really, especially here on countryside roads, and this is the perfect car for that. So as a first conclusion, I must say, I would go for this car if I really want to have a sporty racing car and still use it in everyday life. Don't want to have two cars, one for the racetrack and one for my everyday life. And I think it offers enough comfort to drive to the racetrack and then go nuts there. If you are in a normal drive mode, it drives very calm. It's almost relaxing just to drive. But then you can switch to the sport mode, get more torque, and he shifts later. And you can support that even with drive modes you can pick with the button here in the center console. Look at here. Maybe we can see it here. It's a bit dusty here, but here we got individual, comfort, sport, and Cupra. And this is of course a favorite mode in this case here, because then maybe here too. Shifts very late. And this gives you the ultimate sporty experience. So we're starting here with the design features, because the GT line is of course also about the exterior. Here we got 3 horizontal lines with chrome elements, usually we just have 2, and we have a GT logo. And then we also have a bigger front air intake here as well. We also got full LED headlights, 62 LEDs in total for the beam. From a side profile, we can see we got a chrome frame around the mirror, around the windows. It's very beautiful in my opinion. Here we got the 18-inch alloys. They're also from serial production with the GT version. This one is now, as I said, the 1.6 liter petrol engine, 205 horsepower. The acceleration figure from 0 to 100 kilometers or 0 to 60 miles an hour is 7.5 seconds for the petrol engine. So welcome here to the interior. As I said, we got the highest trim level here because the GT version tops up the even highest trim level so far and goes even further. From serial production we got seats here with Alcantara and artificial leather mix. I think this is the best solution. However, here we got the full leather option. I would also always go for the Alcantara version because I'm not a fan of real leather anymore because you know, it's better to go for the artificial version because so much animals are slaughtered for the real leather. And the Alcantara version is also more sporty because it gives you more support and you also don't sweat on it so much, and it's also not that cold in the winter. But besides the seats, you know, this is a classical new 308 cockpit. I think it's very well done because it's absolutely clean. Most of the functions are controlled via the new touchscreen, and so you don't have so much buttons here. You know, you got volume control and to close the doors, and of course the warning for cars behind. But then that's kind of it. So we start driving here now in the normal mode. What we feel here in the normal mode is that the steering wheel is very soft, not only from the surface, but also the steering is very soft. So, well, that's good when you, for example, search something in the parking lot. So you don't need any power to turn it around. That's of course not the most sportiest feeling, yes, of course. And also just from the pedals, the clutch there, it feels very soft. And also if we compare it to the Golf GTI, the GTI feels a little bit stiffer in general. But then again, for the GT version, maybe the most important feature, in the central console we can push it to the sport mode. And then we got the red instruments, which is also very beautiful racing style. And we got a little bit stiffer steering wheel, and also the throttle input increases, so I get more response from the car in general. I think that's very good for this sporty car here. Now let's hear the sound. Now you hear that there's a special sound generator here for the interior. Of course you can't compare it with a big petrol engine, but I think it's still, you know, a nice change they could do here for the GT version. However, I'm not too convinced of this sound, I must say. So now again, when I get more response from the steering wheel, well, it's a little bit stiffer, but very important factor is it's not more progressive. So you need quite some way to steer around. So maybe if you got very sharp corners, you have to go around even further. About the suspension, well, it does sit lower here in the GT version, and what is very interesting that it sits lower in the front 7 millimeters and in the back 10 millimeters. So, well, just 3 millimeters, a little bit angled in the front. That's very interesting because usually they just even it out. The Golf GTI, for example, or Leon Cupra, Skoda Octavia VRS, they sit 50 millimeters lower. So, and that's maybe an indicator what Peugeot is trying to do, because they claim we are more comfortable than the competitors. And I think that they didn't put the car that low might also be an indicator for that. And indeed, that's the case. So if you want a little sporty car, but still want to have it quite comfortable, you would be more satisfied with that one. I can now already say, for example, the Leon Cupra or the Golf GTI is the most sporty car. It's stiffer on the road, gives you more response from the steering wheel and also from the throttle input. So it It's not about which car is better or worse, it's more about what you really want. This one, I think, is the more relaxing, more comfortable car, also for the long journeys. And I think you always have to think about your height, of course. I'm almost 190 meters, and I must say I feel more comfortable in the Golf because here the seat space is limited. The seat isn't too long, so quite shorty for my legs, and you see, if I want to sit close to the steering wheel, which is very important that I can still control everything, I got a quite sharp angle already at my knees. So I would also prefer another brand here just for my size. However, if you're a little bit smaller, that might perfectly fit to you. And what is of course very good, it doesn't matter if you are just going on the motorway as we're doing it right here now, or just if you have the dynamic feeling. This go-kart steering wheel is really a great idea, and it has so much fun while driving. Now if you want to relax here on the motorway, I think the sound isolation is not the best one, because it's getting quite loud here. We're in 6th gear, 100 kilometers an hour. I think it's a little bit too loud for that one. However, what we do enjoy is this very bright interior with this huge panoramic roof. You cannot open it, that's sad, but that's always a compromise, because if you cannot open it, it's usually going all the way to the back, and so you also get some nice views if you carry around rear passengers. So, these are some driving impressions. Let's start with the exterior here in the front. Well, I have always loved Alfa Romeo design, this Italian design, especially with the front grille with the vertical lines flowing around, just like the logo size. I think it's just this typical Alfa Romeo logo, and just so beautiful, especially always transporting some kind of sporty feeling already just when looking at it. But then again, there are some special changes here in the QV version, the Quadrifoglio Verde. For example, we got a lot of black elements, and these ones are here also in the low bumper, also in the logo itself. It got this shiny black elements, and then you see the lower part is really huge and totally in black, and this is due to the launch edition. This is even more special. So this one is the launch edition model here of the QV, still from last year. Therefore, it is even more aggressive. We look beneath the hood. Yes, hydraulic dampers, check. We got them, so easy to open, and then it's a nice engine design, especially here also with a red contrast turbo benzina. Okay, that's clear, I guess. And this engine, it gives us an acceleration from 0 to 100 kilometers in 6 seconds. I think for a compact car that's quite feasible. Actually, we got some more horsepower than with the Golf GTI. You know, the Golf GTI 220 or 230 horsepower, here 240 horsepower. But this car in this very version is also a little bit more expensive, at least on paper, than the Golf GTI. As it stands here right now, for example, in Germany, you pay 32,500 euros, maybe with some more extras, 34,000 euros, whereas the basic Giulietta would start at 20,000 euros. But then you get all the equipment you actually want to have or you wish to have. So we'll also take a look at the interior now, what special equipment is already included here in the Quadrifoglio Verde version. So let's take a look at the interior of this 4.35 meter long compact car. We got special seats here. They are kind of the half bucket seats. They are called the Alfa Romeo. So we have bucket seats element, for example, at the top of the seat. But then again, we got a rather normal seat at the lower seating part. So it's kind of a compromise, but still they look very good, I must say. And I'll also tell later about when driving how comfortable actually they are while driving. First seating impression here, it's rather cozy, yes, because we have a sporty seat and also this bucket style is kind of cozy. But I think for tall people, I already realize now it's a bit small, the seat itself. Especially here in the lower part, a lot of space between my knees and the seat, and also just from the side. I think they're really oriented more on maybe drivers that are 180 or less. If you're above 180, like me, well, might not be the best case in here. The rest of the cockpit, let's look at the steering wheel. We got white contrast stitches on the inside. The general steering wheel is quite huge, I must say, and if you remember maybe the steering wheel from the 147, the predecessor car of this one here before 2010, I think the steering wheel there looked a little bit better, because here, this middle part, yes, it does imitate the logo, which is kind of a nice idea, but I think it's a little bit clumsy. I would have liked if it's a little bit slimmer here on the inside, then it doesn't look that sporty in my opinion. But the steering, like just how it works actually, I'll going to tell you later on while driving, but I can already tell you that's actually quite good. So doesn't look that good, but it works quite fine. Then the rest of the cockpit, it's all in dark here, also the seating and everything. This is this racing scheme again. You know, I like it more when it's bright generally, but for the racing cars or racing top sports version, they usually pick the darker colors. So let's take a look at the rear compartment, as we have used from the predecessor version, from the 147, the Alfa Romeo. We got the handles here for the rear doors hidden inside here. It's actually a good design element, because it still looks like it would be a 3-door coupe then. But then let's get inside, and there we got some problems if you're, well, a little bit taller. At least we got a handle here, but then you see, just for my knees, I got the seat as I would be driving here now, and you see it doesn't really fit. I could just squeeze my knees in here. But I would really need a smaller driver that I fit in here. For example, in the Golf, you have way more space here. Actually, for the head space here, it still does fit. I got that kind of space above my head. I'm 186 in meters. Maybe if we would have the panoramic roof, then it wouldn't fit at all, I think. So if you think about going for adults here in the back, maybe not pick the panoramic roof, but you see already with the knees it gets some problems. You can also move up the head restraint now and test again. Well, it's really not that comfortable here in the rear. Maybe when the co-driver has the seat way more on the front and is also not that big, then I could move over to the second part here, and then it would actually work also with my knees. But still, that's not really that a good solution. I think as a co-driver would be, well, it has to be really small right now here. Then it would actually work. What is nicely done is that the design scheme also with the white and green contrast stitches is also carried over here in the rear compartment. Also with the Alcantara on the inside. You know, really my favorite combination. If you got, for example, artificial leather on the outside and Alcantara on the inside, also is a good combination also for, they always got a good climate, don't stick to the seats in the summer and still not that cold in winter times. That's really nice, but you see, really not that much space here. So let's talk about driving the Alfa Romeo Giulietta Quadrifoglio Verde. First of all, the steering, well, it didn't look that good, but it actually offers a quite direct steering, so nothing to moan about that. Also, I don't have to steer that long, so it always feels quite progressive. I can always keep both hands at the steering wheel, and that's very good for a sporty car, of course. About the engine, we got a quite nice sound here for a compact car. And especially when I go to the sport mode, I can turn the revs higher, and then if I then push the throttle, I'm coming to the tunnel now, by the way, then we can maybe even better hear on the inside. Oh, well, actually it's not this kind of roaring sound like from a huge sports car. but just to have some more emotion in everyday driving, I think, or emozioni as our Italian friends would say, that actually works quite well. And also when the shifting is done with the automatic gearbox, like from second to third gear or something like that, we sometimes hear this small plop sound from the exhaust in the back, and that's always very nice to hear in this kind of car. Then about the riding comfort, if we had quite plain roads now as we have at the moment, it does feel comfortable, yes, and you got a good contact to the road, very sporty feeling really with the suspension. The car sits 50 millimeters lower, so it's of course stiffer then. But then you have to think about, okay, if you want to go on over some bumps, some holes in the road, then it does feel rather uncomfortable. So you really have to think about how important is a very comfortable ride at all times for you, and how plain are the roads you are going on. So if it's just some waves in the road, that's perfectly fine. But again, these small holes and bumps, there it is where the sporty suspension really also has its disadvantages then in this case. The sound insulation is okay as long as you're not driving too fast. On the motorway, I would say the sound insulation could be better in here. About how comfortable the seats are, actually I've already told you about in the static interior presentation. It could be better for taller people. I think smaller people will be very fine also with the half bucket seats here. For taller people, I think it could be better. There is a lumbar support you can also apply to your lower back, but it's very hard to turn it, so there could be an easier solution for that one. What is actually good is that you have this Alcantara on the middle parts of the seats, and that offers you good climate comfort when riding. That is actually on the positive side. Then just from the compact size of the car, it feels very agile. It's also comparable, for example, to the Golf GTI, and this creates even more riding fun because you have this rather small wheelbase, and then you can always turn right, left without the car moving too far in either corners. And also the car doesn't weigh actually that much, so you don't have this great understeering then. That's actually quite feasible as well. Of course, due to the front-wheel drive, if you really push the throttle and the road is rather wet, then you get a lot of wheel spin at the front tires. But in general, when the road is dry, you'll be fine with that, and so this power can also be transported via the front wheels. That's quite okay. Yeah, the engine, as I said, also placed in the 4C for the Alfa Romeo, and I think that's also quite good because they can use the same parts and also reduce the costs for both cars, and also when developing the cars. And I think you can really do this. So which HotHatch would you pick? I think the Alfa Giulietta QV Portfolio Verde, I think it's very special from the exterior, especially this Italian design. However, I wasn't really satisfied with the interior quality. The Seat Leon Cupra, well, also not that a fan of the interior, however, a very powerful and sporty car. Then the Peugeot 308 GT, it's not that powerful yet, there will be a more powerful version later on. Very special interior as well, it's a very small steering wheel, that was actually quite unique. But then such strange things at the RPM meter and the speed meter going up in this kind of direction. So I'm not really sure about that. It was a little bit soft also when driving. Actually, my favorite here is definitely the Golf GTI. I think it has the most class from all of the cars, from the exterior and the interior. It's the most refined car and overall the best package there. Not the cheapest, however, but the best package in my opinion. So what about you? Which one would you go for? Do you share my opinion? Looking forward to your comments here below. Thank you very much for watching Autogefühl. See you next time, and I hope you also like our comparisons here.